Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be coming at you with my review of the new Dynamic Disc Sergeant. So the Sergeant is a disc that has been compared to a few different ones prior to the release, and then as it's come out, people have still been comparing them to these. First of all, it's being compared a lot to the Getaway, then also the Raider, and then in my opinion, I think the closest one, so this is my personal choice, is the Lucid X Trespass. This is the Eric McCabe series. So I'm going to do a few different shot shapes with this. I'm going to do some forehands. I'm going to do anhyzers and hyzers with them. Then I'm also going to be doing backhand anhyzers and hyzers, and maybe even a few straight shots. So I'm going to be throwing one time each with the Raider, the Getaway, and the Trespass, and then I have a Lucid and a Moonshine Sergeant that I'll be throwing to show you all these shots. So let's go ahead and get into them and see how they look. So for this video, I'm going to be doing a little bit of voiceover commentary on this. So the new DD Sergeant has been a great addition to my bag, and I had a lot of fun filming this video and getting for myself to see some of the different angles that it flies on compared to other discs, but also to be able to show y'all how it looks in the Lucid and the Moonshine plastic. So the first shot that I'm showing y'all is the forehand anhyzer. I'm starting these on a little bit of a force over on the anhyzer angle and just letting them fade back at the end. And this has been a shot that I've really been impressed with the Sergeant on, is that how you can force it over on a little bit anhyzer and it'll hold it for just a little bit of that flight, maybe the first 20 to 30%, but then it fights back dependably at the end. Now compared to the Lucid Getaway, I don't really throw them on forehands very often, and I didn't throw that one the best, but as far as feel in the hand, it is similar. Now personally, the disc that I compare it to the most is the Lucid X Trespass. I carry this in my bag, and I have for the past about year or so, and it feels very similar and also has a very similar flight characteristics. Now the Fuzion Raider is a disc that was that the Sergeant was compared to a lot pre-release of it. And I would say that the flight is very similar, while the feel is quite a bit different. But the big difference that I have found in it is that the Raider, as it's a higher speed disc and being that 13 speed with a bigger rim, it has a lot more skip than either the Sergeant or the Trespass or the Getaway. Now on hyzer angles, the Sergeant flies very nicely as well. As I release these out of my hand, I'm releasing these, on just a little bit of hyzer, and they're coming out and then they're pushing forward and dependably fading at the end. Paige Pierce has talked about before a push hyzer, and what a push hyzer basically is it's staying on a hyzer angle the whole way, but it's not just dropping straight to the ground, but it's also not just gliding too far. And I really like that in the Sergeant, that I can release them on a little bit of hyzer, both forehand and backhand, and it's not just going to fade straight out, but it's also not going to glide too far. So they're very controllable, and that's what you want in a control driver. So of course here with the Fuzion Raider, I released that one more flat than I did on hyzer, but you could see that one fought very nicely. Then here the Lucid Sergeant will be thrown here on a backhand anhyzer. I don't throw these too much on anhyzer angles, but as you can see, they fly very nicely on them. They fly very similar on a backhand anhyzer angle to the forehand anhyzer, as they hold that turn for maybe the first 30 to 40% of their flight, but then they're going to fight out to flat and then get to the ground on the hyzer angle. On this Moonshine one, I didn't get on quite as much anhyzer, and it was a little bit nose up, so as you could see, that ended up just kind of diving into the ground. But as I was filming this, I definitely did find that the Sergeant does fly very nicely on the anhyzer angles if you need it to start on a forced anhyzer, but then have a nice dependable fade at the end. The Getaway, it flies nicely on these, but the Getaway just has a little bit more glide, so it wasn't flying quite how I thought it would, but if the Getaway you like, I highly recommend throwing it. Now the Lucid X Trespass, again, it flies very similar to the Sergeant, and it did on the anhyzer for the forehand as well as the backhand, as you could see. Now this Fuzion Raider, I'm going to release this one on quite a bit of anhyzer, and as you're going to see, it's going to fight out of it very nicely. So this is the difference that I find in the Sergeant and the Lucid X Trespass to the Raider, is that the Raider is just going to fight out of it quicker there, and you're going to get more skip out of it. But that's why you carry them in the all these different discs in the bag to fill all those slots. So I wanted to show how it would fly on a little bit of a spike hyzer here. Depending on what the wind is, sometimes I throw this hole as a forehand, sometimes a backhand, and if I go backhand, I'm going spike hyzer around this tree. And the Sergeants there fly very nicely for that. What I like is that they're stable enough to get to the ground around this tree, but they don't have too much glide to where they'll just blow past the basket, and they also don't have too much skip to where they'll skip very far past it. This grass here, generally, today it was a little bit wet out, but generally you get quite a bit of skip around this basket. So as you can see in the Sergeant, they came in really nice, and as you're going to see in this Lucid X Trespass, this one just basically pegs the pole. But as I release those on kind of that spike hyzer angle, they push forward on the hyzer, but then they have that stability to get to the ground and not too much skip to skip past it. So as long as I'm accurate, I'm going to be close to the basket. Now the Raiders here, I can definitely throw it for this shot, but I'm just going to have to take into more consideration the skip that I might get at the end. Now the last shot I'm going to show is the flat backhands with all these discs. Actually, I think most of these come out on a little bit of hyzer, but these are all these shots on both forehands, backhands, on all the different angles. I'm probably throwing about 80 to 85% mostly. And on flat shots, these fly very nicely. These Sergeants, they'll push forward, kind of hold flat a little bit, but then you're going to get a nice dependable fade at the end. I think the Getaway there, as you can see, it flips up just a little bit more at the end, but to flat, but still will fade out. Then you're going to see here in the Lucid X Trespass, this is going to fly again very similar to the Sergeant, as it's going to just push forward here, and then it will fade out at the end very nicely. All of the Getaway, the Trespass, and both the Sergeants all ended within probably 20 feet of each other. Then lastly here, I have the Fuzion Raider, and the only difference in these shots really is going to end up being that the Raider is just going to get a lot more skip at the end, as you'll see. So I hope that you all enjoyed this. It helped me a lot to see how they fly, so announcement here at the end. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed my review of the new DD Sergeant. So as I showed out in the video, some of the discs that it's been compared to the most from its pre-release to now that it's out is the Getaway and the Raider. And then personally, I think it compares most to the Lucid X Trespass, the Eric McCabe series. As far as the feel in the hand, I think it compares most out of the two between the Getaway and the Raider, definitely to the Getaway. And honestly, probably even in its flight as well, although I think the Getaway, and also I would say the flight numbers, are the same on this. Getaway has a little bit more glide, while the Sergeant is just going to want to get to the ground a little bit faster than the Getaway. In comparison to the Raider, it does have a similar flight to the Raider, although the Sergeant, as it's a slower speed disc, has a smaller rim size. So the Raider is going to have more of that high speed stability, and the Sergeant won't quite have that. And then of course also the Raider, as a 13 speed disc, has a little bit wider of a rim. So you're going to get a little bit more skip out of it, and it's just going to want to get to the ground a little bit faster when they're new. But overall, definitely very comparable to both of those. Personally, a disc that's in my bag currently, not this one, I have a little bit of a beat-in one, but it's the Lucid X Trespass. The Lucid X Trespass feels very similar in rim size, and then also the flight is very similar to it as well. So if you're looking for a disc that you can get in stock runs and stuff, then look at the new Sergeant. But honestly, I carry both of them in the bag, and I have been now for a few months. One difference that I would say between the Sergeant and the Trespass is the Trespass is a pretty high glide disc. So even in the Lucid X plastic, it tends to glide a little bit more. So I've found it's kind of a niche spot in my bag to have both a Sergeant and a Trespass, but I've been carrying them both and using them on different holes that just are slightly different out on the courses, and it's been working great for me. So the one that I'm bagging right now is a Lucid Sergeant. It's starting to get slightly beat in, but it's just working great. My favorite shots that I'm using it for are just little slight hyzers that flip up to flat and then fade left. And I've been using it on some spike hyzers too. I'm working it in on those forehands. A lot of times I'm doing a little bit of a force over on the forehands with it and then letting it fade back at the end. So go check out the new DD Sergeant. It's one of probably the best releases that they've had in a while, and I'm really excited about it. So then lastly here for this video, I'm going to be doing a giveaway on my Instagram. My Instagram handle is tstring_DG. I'll have that up in one of the corners on the video. I'm going to be giving this away. So if you want to check out this giveaway, I'll have, of course, T-string _DG. You can go to that on my Instagram and find the post. I'll also have the link down in the description if you want to check that out. So if you haven't picked up a new DD Sergeant yet, go get one, and we'll see y'all in the next video.